Hey, it's Sri here, and in today's video I'm going to talk you through a few really important components of communication that are going to really help you to be able to connect with your husband at a much deeper level. Now, before we dive in, I just want you to let you know that, as we're going through this video and a number of my other videos as well, where I talk about different strategies when it comes to improving your relationship, improving your marriage, improving yourself, I want you to know that these are actual practical strategies that you can begin to apply and they actually work. So many of my clients have applied these and created massive shifts within themselves, and I really want you to know that transformation is real. So make sure you stick around to the very end of this video, where not only that way you'll make sure you get the most out of it, but I'll make sure I give you a little gift that will actually be able to help you to move forward and progress on this journey, because I know it's a really tough time right now for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below and click on that bell notification as well, so every week you get access to my latest videos where I talk you through a little bit more about male psychology, understanding how to heal from infidelity, and really learning the strategies that you can use to be able to move your marriage and your own life forward as well. Now, when it comes to communication, one of the things I always find is that it's the first point of call when it comes to wanting to improve marriages. Because it's this behavior that almost appears tangible, that if we can just change this one thing, then everything's going to be wonderful. We tend to focus on it a lot. In fact, so many of the women that I speak to in terms of my initial consultation calls, they often feel like if I can just change this one thing in terms of learning how to communicate with them, because we're always going hammer and tong with each other, if we can just understand how to communicate with each other, everything will be wonderful. Now, the truth is, it doesn't quite work that way. Now, the reason why communication is also a huge factor is because in relationships, one of the biggest challenges that we face is if someone's being rude to us, if someone's being quite direct or blunt, or they're not giving us that love, what it does is it feels that love is being taken away from us. It literally feels like they're just ripping our heart out. And so every day we're feeling these wounds of, or these experiences and these emotions of rejection and abandonment and inferiority and just sadness and a whole range of other emotions as well. And so because it feels like that love has been taken away from us, what it's doing is it's addressing the very core of who we are. It's bringing up our deepest fears, is that we're not loved or we're not lovable. And so that's why we often get desperate, or we become clingy or become needy and so on, because no one wants to have that love taken away from you. In fact, having love taken away from you at the deepest level actually feels like death. As human beings, we need love to survive. When we were a baby, we needed love to survive. So if we didn't get that love, then or if you're not getting that love right now, it feels like death. So that's why it hits you at the very core. It's also why it's an important component. Now, we're not going to deal with the deeper emotional impact at this moment in time. In fact, you can learn more about that in this video above. But apart from that, one of the things we've got to really understand is how do we maximize our ability, if you like, to be able to communicate with our partner in a way in which they're actually going to respond in the best possible way, where we can actually slowly start to come closer rather than feeling like we're just getting more and more distant. Because I've been there before in relationships in the past where, it feels like no matter what you try, it doesn't work. You're not able to create those shifts. And so what I want to do today in this video is I want to talk you through 3 really important components of communication. Now, just to be clear, when it comes to communication, just applying these strategies once or twice is not going to turn anything around. It has to be applied on a regular basis, and it has to be done at the deepest part of you. In other words, you've got to realize the importance of it. You can't just look for pull a rabbit out of the hat. It's not going to work. There is no such thing as a magic pill. I see it all the time. I see so much crap out there on the internet where it's like, do this one thing or do this one thing and then everything will just change. And when you actually listen to the content, it's not serving the men or women out there. It's not helping them at the deepest level. Transformation comes at the deepest level. And so what I'm going to explain to you are 3 really important points when it comes to communication that you can begin to apply And if you can apply that in conjunction with doing your own healing work, then it can really set you up for some really important success in terms of the future of your marriage and your life. Now, the first component of communication that's really, really key is tonality. When you're actually speaking to someone and you're raising your voice and everything that you say is with a heightened tonality, then it's going to impact that person. Equally, if you're always down and flat and just speaking with a really low sort of tonality, you're not going to have the impact, because it's always going to feel like you're playing some sort of victim card, or you're just always feeling sad and so on. And so it's really important to get the tonality right when it comes to having conversations with your husband or your partner. Now, obviously, every circumstance and every situation is a little bit different. You might be talking about something, a bit more exciting, and your tonality is going to increase. But if there's something that's a little bit more intense or a little bit deeper, your tonality is going to drop. But where I'm really getting at with tonality here is when it comes to having, comments or conversations about things that you may have or could have done better in the past, or where you're actually wanting to apologize, or where there have just been some examples of things that maybe you've done in the past that you could have done differently. And what I see, or what I hear about from a lot of clients and so on, is that when they're doing this, when they're expressing their sorrow for things that they've done, rather than just being very authentic and very genuine, a lot of the time they're going, yeah, look, I've said that before. I'm sorry. I've already told you this. I'm sorry. What else do you want me to do? As opposed to genuinely, from the heart, showing that empathy and showing that remorse and showing that genuine sorrow for some things that you may have done in the past. Now, just to be clear, this is not just about you taking ownership and you doing the things that you need to do in terms of, talking about tonality and so on. Because when it comes to these kind of behaviors, what we have to really understand is that if you can shift your tone with respect to any type of conversation that you're having with your husband, but do it in a way where he's going to be more receptive to it, then suddenly the conversation can go in a much better direction. So if this is a case of you taking ownership and showing some remorse for some of the things that you may have done, you want to shift your tonality and really come from the heart there. Really speak from your heart. Like, honey, listen, it's taken me a while to really understand this, but I know what I've done is wrong. I know I could have done this better, or I'm so sorry for doing this to you. I shouldn't have. It was my fault, and I take complete ownership of it. And, you must have had to go through so much pain, and for that, I apologize profusely. I'm really, really sorry for that, honey. And I hope that one day we can really connect at a much deeper level, knowing that I am genuinely apologetic for the things that I have done. Now, that may be if you're, apologetic of the things that you may have done in the past. Equally, if he's starting to communicate with some of those things and actually sharing where he's at, if you're firing back with any sort of aggression on any level, then he's going to get defensive. So you can use your tone when it comes to communicating with him and soften it in a way that actually shows that you're listening and you're empathizing with where he's at. Because here's what I know. No matter what's going on in a relationship, both parties have their own perceptions and their own interpretation of events. And because of that perception and that interpretation, both parties feel like they're in pain. So if one person can start to take the lead in terms of the communication side, and especially the tonality piece, then you can really start to slowly connect at a much deeper level. Because to add to this, one of the reasons that so many relationships fall apart, and one of the reasons that men struggle in relationships a lot of the time, is that they feel that their partner is going to go completely nuts at them. that if they were to speak their truth, that their partner or wife is going to completely unload on them, and that can create a lot of pain and fear. So what do? They run, they escape, they get out of that environment. So tonality is key. So always remember to try and soften that tonality as much as you can when it comes to having certain conversations. Now, obviously there are times where it's going to be a little bit more intense. Sometimes you do need to speak your truth. Sometimes you do need to set boundaries, but it can be all done in a beautiful way. It can be done without heightened tonality. It can always be done in a much softer way, and you can still get the message across and still be direct with your actions as well. So I hope that makes sense when it comes to tonality. Now the second part is around physiology. Now when it comes to, once again, communication, if your physiology is such that you're representing through your body language your anger, your bitterness, your frustration, or your sadness, or your resentment, whatever emotion it is that you're feeling, if that is constantly expressed by virtue of your body language, by either feeling down or crossing your arms, or just even the tenseness of your facial muscles, or shallow breathing, whatever it is, that can easily then be portrayed or passed on to the other person in terms of expressing, or you expressing how you feel without even saying a word. Because the reality is that about 90% of human communication is non-verbal. Now just think about that for a second. 90% of human communication is non-verbal. And that means that all of the emotion and so on is charged by virtue of just how you're actually physically representing yourself. It's actually fascinating stuff. But if you can learn to use your physiology in a much better way, then things can really start to shift. Now, an example, my wife does it beautifully. Whenever we communicate, if there's anything that's intense about things, she might actually, hold my hand, or there's a certain softness to her energy, to her body language, which means that I know that I can feel comfortable speaking my truth to her. Whereas, maybe in previous relationships, there's this tenseness, and, the other person might be looking away, or they might just feel, you can just sense that they're angry and they're not even saying a word. You just know that they're pissed off. Or it could just be eye movements, or it could just be a breath that's been taken. So let's say, for example, I was to say something to you like, I'm just not really happy right now. I've noticed that you just haven't really been giving me the attention that I wanted. And then immediately you look to your left or to your right and you're like, now that in and of itself immediately speaks volumes, because if I'm seeing that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to react because you're representing yourself in a negative way, or you're reacting to what I'm saying in a negative way. Whereas what I'm trying to do is maybe get a point across, but if you're reacting in a negative way to what I'm saying, then that's what causes the tennis match to occur in terms of, communication. So that's why using your physiology is really important. So simple things can be just potentially putting your hand on his hand, or just having a warmth and an openness in terms of your own energy. You can just come from your heart. What I believe in doing before you have any deep conversation, just spending a couple of minutes and just breathing from your heart, really feeling that love in your heart, and then you can have that conversation. Now I know that's easier said than done, and that's why I produce so much content around shifting your emotional state, because when you shift that, then your words and your physiology and your tonality is going to come across in a much better way. But using your physiology in a positive way is really, really important. Try not to get too tense. Try not to overly display your anger or resentment or sadness or hurt or anything like that. And that's not to say you shut down your emotions. But if you're wanting to get through to your partner at that particular moment in time, then you really need to to balance yourself as best as you can emotionally. And part of that is using your physiology and expressing it in a beautiful way, in a warm way. And we all know what this feels like. I mean, when you're around your kids, or think of moments where you've been around your kids, or you've had a moment of love with a friend, or colleague, or whoever. And I don't mean intimate love, but just a moment of just compassion and care and empathy for someone else. That's what I'm talking about. Your physiology then represents that. So really focus on shifting your physiology. And then finally, it's your language. What language do you use when it comes to your husband or your partner? And to simplify this, if we use the example of the word hate, now you can use the word hate or you can use the word dislike. One word creates an intense emotion, another word creates sometimes a difficult emotion in and of itself, but it's not as intense as the word hate. Now, particularly if you use those words towards someone else, their interpretation of it is going to be very different as well. If I say, I hate you, versus, look, honey, right now I'm kind of having some challenges really liking you at this moment, there's going to be a different emotion relating to that. Now, no one's going to enjoy hearing those words either way, but the point is the intensity to those words. If I'm going through a really difficult time, am I going through a challenge or am I going through a crisis? A crisis is going to be very intense. A challenge is, okay, it's difficult, but I have the tools and the skills to be able to move forward. So using the right language is absolutely key as well. Now, we think that the language is the most important part because, it's almost the tangible component, if you like. But the truth is get your physiology right. Well, actually, more importantly, get your emotional state right. Then get your physiology. Then, in conjunction with your language, you're using your tonality. So get all of those four together working beautifully, and immediately you start to have much better and more productive conversations with your husband or partner. It is really, really powerful stuff. I'm telling you now, it's been a game changer for us because we actually have the ability to have beautiful conversations now. Even if we're talking about some deep things, some things that can sometimes trigger each other, we're able to have better conversations and be able to come out the other side in a much more positive way, rather than feeling like it's all heavy and doom and gloom all the time. And most of us are on autopilot when it comes to communication. Now, as I said, a huge component to all of this is shifting your emotional state, making the changes at that level, because when you do, it's incredible. And I think, if I'm completely honest, I don't think enough people really understand the importance of it. I really feel that most people are still focused primarily on trying to get the other person to change, trying to get them to operate differently, to try and get them to just out of nowhere, magically or miraculously, just come back to us and say, honey, I realized I made the biggest mistake of my life and I'm sorry and I want to make this work with you. Let's really focus on this. Now, that does happen sometimes, but the truth is a lot of men are at a point where they've been suffering or struggling in their marriage for a long time, and then they got to a point where they justified in their own mind that they wanted to separate. So then what happens is a lot of people don't do the work until it's at a point of, where it's almost like it's past the final straw. And that's what saddens me the most, is a lot of people get to that place. Now, does that mean it's all over? Absolutely not. And I've seen miracles before my eyes in terms of my clients and being able to create those shifts. But why I'm kind of being a little bit direct here is that you've just got to understand that you have to dive in and you've got to do the work and you've got to take these lessons and really put them into practical applications of it. If you can really start to apply it, everything shifts. Everything will slowly start to move forward in the right direction, as long as you play the long game and you also maintain a sense of what I call detachment from an outcome, which is to say, I want this, but if worst case scenario happens and I don't get it, then you know what? I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. But shifting that and getting to that place once again requires some deeper emotional healing as well. And a big part of my work and a big part of the process that I take my clients through is about a deeper level of emotional healing and transformation. And something that I spend a lot of time working with my clients on, and I've also spent a huge amount of time on my own self to create some of the shifts that I needed to do in order to move forward in my life and just find more peace, find more joy, find more happiness in the moment. And so, if you're at a place where you're stuck and you're not sure what to do, and you find some of these strategies a little bit difficult to apply because you're feeling a little bit stuck emotionally, then I'd love to be of service to you through my program, The Authentic Relationship System. It's an amazing program. You'd absolutely love it because we go deep. It's not a superficial program by any stretch of the imagination. We go deep, and there's a huge range of content combined with what I believe is the very best level of support that's out there. And so what I want you to do is, if it does feel right for you, if you connect with my work and you resonate with me and the messages that I've got, then in the description section below, just click on that link which just says book a call with me. Just click on that link, choose a time that works for you, and then what I'll do is I'll contact you at the scheduled time just so I can learn a little bit more about where you're at now, where you want to get to, what your biggest challenges are, what your deepest fears are, and so on. And then from there, I can actually give you a bit of a pathway to be able to move forward and see if this is a good fit for you. If it is, great, we'll get you on board, and I'm really, really excited to be of service to you. But either way, I really appreciate you taking the time to go through and watch this video. Once again, if you want to click on that link, then I'll make sure I give you a call at that time. So thank you again for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit that like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And do let me know what your biggest takeaway is, or if you've got any particular questions at all, just write them below in the comment section, and I'll make sure I respond to every single one of you. And if you want to learn a little bit more about how to get your husband to love you again, click this video above. And if you want to learn how to avoid emasculating your man, click this video above. Thank you so much. God bless, and I'll talk to you in the next video.